This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Tuesday, January 5th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Central African Republic President Faustin-Archange Touadera has won a second term in office, according to provisional results from the country's electoral commission. The National Election Authority says that Touadera was re-elected in the first round of the presidential vote on December 27 with almost 54% of the vote. Anicet-Georges Dologuele came a distant second with 21% of the vote, and Martin Ziguele finished third with 7%, according to the results announced. The vote and its aftermath have been marked by violence and the formation of a rebel coalition amid calls from the opposition to delay the vote. The results must now be officially validated by the Constitutional Court, which has filed appeals. Meanwhile, rebel fighters alleged to be working with former President Francois Bozize attacked and entered a diamond mining town. David Doyle reviews recent events.
Rebel fighters have attacked and partially occupied a diamond mining town in Central African Republic, according to humanitarian and security sources. The incident took place in Bongasu, around 300 miles east of the capital Bangui, on Sunday, the day before the results for a presidential election were due to be announced. Rebels, who the government and United Nations say are backed by ex-President Francois Bozize, launched an offensive last month. That was after Central African Republic's Constitutional Court rejected Bozize's candidacy for last Sunday's vote.
Défendre la démocratie.
Bozize's party officially denies he's working with the rebels, though some in the party have suggested they're working together. According to the UN's mission in Central African Republic, at least 5 rebels were killed and 2 army soldiers wounded in the Bongasu clashes. After hours of fighting on Sunday, rebel fighters entered the town, sources said, but it was not clear to what extent they were in control. An army spokesman said he did not have information about the situation, and a UN mission spokesman was not immediately available for comment.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. Scientists in Nigeria are learning more about the COVID-19 virus variant that has emerged in the country. Nigerian scientists spent the holiday season in laboratories working on genetic sequencing to learn more about the country's COVID-19 variant. According to the World Health Organization, the new variants have emerged as COVID-19 infections are on the rise in 47 African countries. Nigeria has confirmed more than 86,000 COVID-19 cases with over 1,250 deaths, according to the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. With COVID-19 variants emerging in Nigeria and South Africa, the WHO says Africa needs to do more genetic sequencing. Such lab work is being conducted by virologist Sunday Omilabu, the director of the Center for Human and Zoonotic Virology at the Lagos University College of Medicine and Teaching Hospital.
We need to be monitoring the virus. We need to sequence. If we sequence, then we have more information about what is in circulation. And then, of course, we need to continue with surveillance. We need to monitor how active the virus is in an environment. Where we know, we stumbled on an area and we notice that this is the level of the activity of the virus there. So the public health experts, they have what to do. Then they can move in, then government must support all this. The variant discovered in the UK and South Africa, they are distantly different from the variants discovered in Nigeria presently. But like I said, we don't have much information on the sequencing because we are not sequencing as much as we're supposed to do.
That was Sunday Omilabu, director of the Center for Human and Zoonotic Virology at the Lagos University College of Medicine and Teaching Hospital. Schools across Kenya are now fully reopened, but some parents fear that crowded classrooms could pose a danger to their children. Okwi Oko explains.
Hundreds of children formed an orderly queue that snaked through Kibra, Nairobi's biggest slum, on Monday, waiting to enter classes for the first time since March. Kenya is the last country in East Africa to fully reopen its schools. The World Health Organization has warned that prolonged school closures pose risks for children, including higher rates of teenage pregnancy, poor nutrition, and permanent dropouts. At the Olympic Primary School, most boys and girls wore masks as they waited for their temperatures to be taken and sanitizer to be squirted into their hands. But some parents are worried that the danger lurks inside in overcrowded classrooms. Maureen Adiambo says she believes the children will be okay, but she's not certain.
But then I ask myself, like in this school, Olympic, there are too many students. How will they operate? Some of them do not even know how to wash their hands. How will they be safe in school?
Children in grades 4, 8, and 12 returned to class in October so they could prepare for postponed exams. Education Minister George Magoha said on Sunday that the government is trying to assure the safety of students and teachers by distributing more than 500,000 desks and supplies of soap.
That was Okwi Oko of Reuters reporting. A British judge has rejected the United States' request to extradite WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to face espionage charges, saying it would be oppressive because of his mental health. Henry Ridgwell reports.
Supporters of Julian Assange celebrated outside the London court as the judge ruled that he cannot be extradited to the United States.
Today's victory is the first step towards justice in this case.
The British judge concluded that Assange would have a fair trial at the US District Court in Alexandria, Virginia, and that he should answer the charges. But she ruled that Assange suffers from severe depression, and the conditions in which he would be jailed in almost solitary confinement meant that the United States prison system could not prevent him taking his own life.
This is an important win and a ruling that should be celebrated. But let's not forget that she also made some very problematic findings on the free speech aspects of this case.
Assange's lawyers argue the charges are politically motivated and that extradition would pose a threat to journalism, which the United States denies. Press freedom campaigners welcome the ruling. In 2010 and 2011, Assange oversaw the publication by WikiLeaks of tens of thousands of diplomatic cables and military reports relating to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Assange says the leak exposed abuses by the US military, including this video purportedly showing the killing of Iraqi civilians. The US accuses Assange of hacking classified material that endangered national security and revealed the identity of US informants, which put their lives at risk. The British judge ruled that concerns over Assange's welfare trumped the US charges.
This is the third time this has happened with the United States trying to extradite people from the UK, and there have been cases where it has been closely fought for terrorism defendants as well.
The United States has appealed the ruling. It is possible that Assange could face prosecution in Britain.
I wouldn't rule out the United States and the UK cooperating to doing something like that, because it is the kind of thing they do on national security cases. These charges argued that Assange revealed coalition informant identities, not just US informant identities, which would be understood to include British informants.
Assange sought refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy in London in 2012 after facing accusations of rape in Sweden, a case that has since been dropped. He stayed there for 7 years until Ecuador allowed British police to arrest him in April 2019. He was then jailed for 50 weeks for breaching bail. For now, Assange is back in a London prison, pending a bail application in the coming days. The appeal process against the ruling could take several months or more. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Voters in the southern U.S. state of Georgia will play a crucial role in determining the balance of power in the U.S. for the next 2 years when they head to the polls Tuesday. VOA's congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson reports from Atlanta, Georgia, on the 2 U.S. Senate runoff elections.
President Trump on the campaign trail Monday, once again alleging election fraud.
There's no way we lost Georgia. There's no way. That was a rigged election.
Even while telling voters here they need to head to the polls once again to re-elect Senators Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue to give Republicans control of the U.S. Senate.
I'm not going to admit I cast my ballot with some skepticism because of what happened the first time.
The president's supporters say beating Democratic challengers Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock is so important it overcomes their doubts about election fraud.
They're going to have the power, the House, the Senate. That's the most extreme power that we can have against the taxpaying person. I guess our taxes will probably go up. They're going to try to take our guns away, but it could get ugly. I mean, I'm afraid if it goes the way that the Democrats want you to believe, that it could get turned ugly.
President-elect Biden won Georgia by fewer than 12,000 votes, due in large part to voters in the suburbs of Atlanta shifting from Republicans to Democrats.
By electing John and the Reverend, you'll be sending a powerful message to Congress and to the country.
Can I give you a swag bag? Thank you. And would you like it?
Those close margins in this traditionally Republican state mean Democrats have to mount yet another strong effort to mobilize voters.
Just go ahead and run through the guide and I'll run you through a training.
Volunteers like Kara Allen and Sean Watkins are a big part of the Democrats' strategy for reaching out to the younger, more diverse voters who have reshaped the state in recent years.
I actually wasn't that much into politics like maybe 2 years ago, but because of everything going on with Trump in the country, it's really made me come out and do things like this. And I really hope that people come out and change things for the better.
Allen says Trump's doubts about his loss in Georgia don't account for the state's demographic changes in recent years.
It's just typical Trump behavior, in my opinion. Of course, he's not going to take the answer so easily. And I feel like since Georgia has always been known as a Republican state, a change happens and all of a sudden, there's fraud. Change is always possible regardless of what is going on. I think it's really genuine that it happened.
A record 3 million Georgians have already headed to the polls in early voting. If Democrats win both Senate seats Tuesday, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris would be the tie-breaking vote. But after a close presidential election here in Georgia, many of the president's supporters say they will not accept that result.
If there's fraudulent in the presidential election, I wouldn't put him past him for some shady stuff to happen.
That raises the prospect of the results being contested well beyond Election Day Tuesday. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Atlanta, Georgia.
Thanks, Catherine. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, the benefits and challenges of relying on technology during the coronavirus pandemic. We'll be right back.
Hello, welcome to Straight Talk Africa, live from the Voice of America headquarters here in Washington. I am Shaka Sali. Straight Talk Africa, we call it like it is. We discuss issues that reflect the interests of our audience without fear or favor. We are guided by facts, and I look at myself as a servant of nothing but the truth.
Being part of Our Voices is about more than just sitting here and talking about women's issues. It's about listening to them
and bringing their opinions to the table and making sure their voices are heard.
Because our lived experiences, our stories, and our voices will help shape the next generation.
Welcome back to Africa 54. For Russians, the past year saw a national vote to approve changes to their constitution, including an amendment granting long-term leader Vladimir Putin the right to remain president through the year 2036. And as Charles Mains reports from Moscow, the question now is, will he?
Already 20 years in power, President Vladimir Putin's biggest political accomplishment this past year was opening the door to constitutional reforms that reset his presidential term limit. A national referendum passed this summer allows the Russian leader to remain in the Kremlin well into the next decade, even if Putin remains coy about his plans for now.
From a formal perspective, the people have spoken. Whether I'll do it or not, we shall see.
Putin justified the move, saying it avoided lame duck status and subsequent Kremlin infighting before the end of his current term in 2024. But it's a mandate that has come with new, unexpected burdens, say political observers.
The system is very much oriented at him being its cornerstone, so to say. Yeah? That's what he's proud of, that this country is hand-tuned by his hands.
For the global coronavirus pandemic has not only upended Russian life, it has cast Putin in an unfamiliar role. A world leader pulled from the global stage to deal with a national health crisis and its economic fallout.
He was always raising Russia from its knees, hitting back at the US and astride the international stage. Social problems, pensions and healthcare had nothing to do with him.
Until now, the year saw Putin facing rising discontent over his handling of the pandemic, a sagging economy, and his top-down style of governance. The near-death poisoning of opposition leader Alexei Navalny in Siberia this past August also raised glaring questions about the limits of political freedoms under Putin's rule. Younger Russians in particular remain less enthusiastic about Putin as president for life, say polls and leading opposition voices.
If you ask people directly, do you want Putin to stay until 2036, a majority will say no, and that's without even trying to convince them.
A slew of new repressive laws and an immunity clause for former presidents suggest the Russian leader is taking few chances. For while he remains the commanding figure of Russian politics for now, decisions over his political future have merely been postponed, not resolved, leaving a nation on edge as it looks to 2021 and beyond. Charles Mains for VOA News, Moscow.
With manipulated images flooding the internet, how can we tell what's true? Mark Debo looks at one solution, a digital seal of authenticity.
These people have a message for us. The old adage of seeing is believing is over. They can't tell us in person because none of them exist. They were created using artificial intelligence. With rapid advances in AI and photo editing software, can we ever believe an image we see online again?
Instead of trying to detect what's fake, you try to prove what's real.
TruePic makes software that tags photos with a unique signature to help authenticate them in the future. Now they've partnered with chipmaker Qualcomm to embed the technology on the same secure chip that handles fingerprint recognition on smartphones.
We produce these photos that essentially have a seal on them. If anybody was to modify anything about the photos, whether the pixels, the date and time, the location where it was captured, that seal would be broken, essentially, and we would be able to know that that file has been modified since the time of capture.
In addition to location and time of capture, the system also embeds a 3D depth map of the scene in front of the lens. Later, a viewer can access all this information, along with a log of any changes made to the photo.
So you have full transparency of exactly, what happened from the time that light entered into the camera to then light coming out of the display, essentially into your eyes.
TruePic is collaborating with Microsoft, Adobe, and media organizations on open-source software they hope will eventually be included in every browser and app that displays photos.
If we were to look out on a 10-year horizon, we expect that any photo or video will come with proof of its authenticity,
making fake images easier to spot. Matt Dibble for VOA News, San Francisco.
People around the world turned to technology to help them get through the pandemic, but in some key ways, tech fell short. Michelle Quinn reports.
People have turned to technology as never before during the pandemic. Work, school, visiting the doctor, staying close to friends and family. For better or worse, it's been a year for technology to showcase how it can play an even bigger part in people's lives.
There's no question that for millions of people, tech was a lifesaver.
Eric Reese is a serial entrepreneur who speaks about innovation. At the beginning of the pandemic, he was thrilled to see tech companies, entrepreneurs, and technologists jump into action, trying to help. In the spring, Google and Apple created a historic partnership to use smartphones to notify people if they had been exposed to the virus. But then projects stalled. A smartphone app from the Google-Apple partnership was released in California in December.
We have to judge that whole effort a failure because it took such a long time to get any of these apps deployed. Can you have imagined at the beginning of the crisis someone had said we would have a vaccine successfully deployed before contact tracing apps? Or, they would go live at the same time? I mean, one of them is a Herculean effort of science and the other is relatively easy.
Such efforts were stymied by a lack of central coordination among governments, a lack of understanding in tech circles of who makes decisions at the local level and how best to reach them, Reese said.
There was nobody to interface with. And as that horror dawned on people, this is not something that Silicon Valley is especially good at. We're so used to the model of kind of the lone wolf, new innovator, and we didn't do a very good job at that.
Kamika Dempsey is a member of the COVID-19 Technology Task Force, created to do just that, connect technologists and governments. Technology's inequity, she said, has been a sore spot of the pandemic.
You have people who are in rural communities in the country that don't actually have access to broadband. You see things like people not having access to laptops, cell phones, tablets, etc., in order to be able to connect, to learn, to work, to do the things that they need to do.
The pandemic, she says, has recalibrated what's important in technology.
Technology today, in light of this pandemic, is really going back to the heart of the best innovations that have ever come about. They are born out of necessity and solving a true problem for someone in need.
Silicon Valley has learned a lot in its pandemic response. How it will take those lessons forward into 2021 remains to be seen. Michelle Quinn, VOA News, Oakland, California.
The coronavirus pandemic has changed the way people work, dress, and relax. Fashion was one of the first to adapt to the new housebound reality, making sweatpants the new Americans' go-to attire. Nina Vishneva has the story, narrated by Anna Rice.
The anticipated fashion trends of 2020 never got a chance to make it to the streets. The coronavirus pandemic made office attire almost useless. Instead, sweatpants became priceless.
It's mostly a COVID-19 piece where you are just home, you still want to look sexy and wear a crop top.
Marusia Kazakova, a Russian-American fashion designer, and her husband Burkindi opened their New York gallery, Jenkoi, in the middle of the pandemic. Their signature style is a combo of African and Russian folklore mixed with the classic Puma sports clothes. They were selling their clothing before COVID, but the pandemic made such attire incredibly popular.
How do you express yourself? Right? Even if we go out, we need to be able to express ourselves. You can see now everybody wearing messages. We want to show who we are.
COVID has sent formal office wear into storage for the foreseeable future, together with dress shoes and stiletto heels. Remote work is all about feeling good, not necessarily looking good, because with the occasional video online conference call, the only people you are seeing is from the waist up.
Only something from here up to here.
Martina Dietrich was among the first New York designers who started to alter clothing to fit the COVID reality better. The flexibility of clothing is what makes it more appealing these days.
This coat you can also wear other way around.
COVID also fast-tracked the rise of online shopping and killed the idea of simply popping into actual stores. More prudent spending took the place of shopping sprees. The main accessory of the pandemic is, of course, a face mask. Face masks are now a way to stay safe, keep others safe, and make a statement. But for many, letting people see their face and getting close is the biggest statement of all.
The idea is to let people work close and safe. Instead of standing 6 feet apart, that people can be close. You can talk to somebody, and be protected without covering their face. Like, you know, everybody now has a mask. You can't see their face. You can't hear what they're saying very clearly. When you can see the expressions, it's much more, you know, free.
Responsibility and eco-friendliness. This is what the new year has in store for the fashion industry. Oh, and most importantly, comfort. Vanina Vishneva in New York, Anna Rice, VOA News.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, we thank you for watching.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.